want to welcome you to Rockland in Motion. This is a two-part virtual series that began basically at the beginning of the pandemic when everything started to get shut down. Rivertown had to cancel all of its screenings, and I think a lot of artists were feeling both like it's really necessary to create, but also especially filmmakers, like how do I create? So this sort of began in that moment that we knew we wanted to do something for local filmmakers, and we weren't really sure what it would look like. So we're really grateful for everybody who submitted their work and everybody who has joined us for the conversation. If you don't know about Rivertown Film, it's Film Society here in Rockland County that's been around for a couple of decades. And it really speaks to the local history of filmmakers here. You know, filmmakers have been working in Rockland County since the silent era and have given their talents out to commercial industries, but also made productions locally here. So all of our filmmakers tonight have some root in Rockland, either grew up here or currently live and work here. So that's sort of an exciting part of the program too. With that said, we are a nonprofit. So that means that funds are always a thing. So we wanted to do this program for free, and we encourage a donation, but if you don't have the money, you're still welcome to be here. But we are asking for a donation of $10 or more if you can. And if you have any extra to spend, we're doing an auction that there's a link in the chat for. I'm gonna also read it off my screen so I don't get it wrong. It's 32auctions.com/RivertownFilm2020, and there's really cool items on there from pottery to Tai Chi classes to a book on the foundation of Miss America pageant, which looks really interesting to me and also very relevant. And yeah, so there's things that you can bid on there if you did want to support in that way too. Also, we are showing a documentary on Harry Chapin called When in Doubt, Do Something, along with Arts Rock. If you don't know Harry Chapin, he, to me, is really an incredible artist because he made his whole life about service. Every show that he did, he would do one for himself and the next for the public. So any proceeds from those shows would go to charity. His main cause was ending world hunger and hunger here in the US. So he tried to get as much money as he could to making food security a reality. So we're gonna be holding a conversation around that and showing that film from October 23rd to October 29th. And there'll be a discussion with Tom Chapin on October 27th at 7. So we hope you can join us for that. With that said, I'll start by introducing our host, Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah, who is the author of Friday Black, which is an incredible debut collection of short stories. And he's also a writer local here to Rockland County, grew up in Spring Valley, went through the Ramapo School District, and really makes a point of making that clear. And it seems as though he is very interested by being here and supporting our local artists. So we're really grateful for that. And we're grateful that he's continuing to be a part of the community in that way. Also, for those who love film, these short stories are incredibly cinematic. Like the cuts in them are some of the best I've seen when I think about like transitions on the page that we can, and how writers can learn from watching films. I think this collection really speaks to that. And I'd be curious to hear more about how maybe Nana's own love for film might come through in that way, or if I'm just projecting that onto the story. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Nana, and thank you everybody for being here.
Thank you so much. That was really nice. I didn't know you were going to say that. So my name is Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. As Juliana just said, I'm an author, and I like that you mentioned I'm from Spring Valley, Rockland County. I like to rep that pretty hard. And so, you know, I'm very excited to be here. I'm always happy to speak with artists, and I'm especially like doubly excited to be with artists that are so wonderfully local. I think it's very important. And, you know, watching these films, I was personally inspired actually. And so it was really a nice chance to get to commune in this sort of, you know, this time we're all in. But yeah, so like I was saying, you know, I'm super excited, and I think you guys, you really did a beautiful job. If we were in person, I would pause here, and I'm sure the crowd would applause pretty loudly. So sort of take that in, feel that right now. Clap, 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 clap. Some of them are doing, you can see. Yeah, I'm yes, clap for yourselves as well, because you did something. So yeah, I'm super excited. I'm so excited I even cleaned my room, even though you could see almost none of it. But I'm glad I did, because in cleaning, I found this old world relic, which thought I would mention. I don't know if people have seen one of these, this old world relic from the before times called an iron. It was used back in the day to maim your enemies, sometimes to make a pressed sandwich. And maybe most ridiculous of all, it was used to use energy to press wrinkles out of clothes. I think that's one old world sort of aspect that will probably not come back. I mean, maybe for some of you, it never left. If you are that person that's still ironing your clothes, good for you, but also kind of why, But anyway, I say that all that stuff just to joke, but I also want to sort of like start opening up and acknowledge that we aren't in a neutral time. Obviously, global pandemic has stifled many of us. Some of us has been bludgeoned. And we're also in a time where the fact of racism is in the sort of global consciousness in a way that I've never felt in my lifetime before. So to start this off, and I'm gonna go just in the order that you guys are on my screen, I want to let everyone have a chance to answer the question, how has being a creative in this moment been for you? What is it meant to be a filmmaker in this current moment in time? And I'll start with John Gray.
Well, I mean, to begin with, obviously, clearly it's the most extraordinary time I can ever remember, with everything that's going on. And, with the pandemic, at least I have found, my outlets have pretty much shut down. Film is not being made, TV is not being made. They're just starting baby steps now to bring things back. So I made my little short film, really, which is just a fun kind of, little mystery. I just made it out of the sheer frustration of not being able to create something as I normally would. Usually I make a short film or two every year, and I was set to do one, and actually I was going to do it in LA in May, and we were prepping it in February, and of course we had to shut down. So I tried to figure out, how can I still find a way to be creative and do something fun and give people a diversion perhaps. And like everybody else, I'm on Zoom all the time. It's a way of life, and that's what sort of gave me the idea to do this movie through Zoom, sort of a little murder mystery concerning a corrupt financial company that's having this meeting that sort of goes off the rails. But for me, I just don't know. I can't really get my head around where we go from here. In terms of the entertainment industry and as individual artists, it feels like when this pandemic, when it ends, and I think it will end, everything is going to be so changed, socially, medically. It's very difficult to imagine. Can we go back to any sort of normal, what we consider normal storytelling? So I don't know. I mean, it's a fascinating. What's the old expression? May you live in interesting times. So yeah. Here we are. It's also terrifying times. So I just think that the real impact of this will probably, in terms of the way it impacts artists, I think we're probably not going to see for a year or two after it's over, when people have had a chance to digest and reflect and really find some deeper meaning that we may not even see right now. Absolutely,
and for myself, I even think like with writers, I'm forward to like the things that come out in 15, 20 years from now, 100%. Tron, for you, how's it been just being an artist in this moment?
I'm not gonna lie, I've probably been the least productive, least creative ever since any of this happened. Yeah, it's really crazy. I usually am like I have ideas, but I think as far as putting them together, it was very hard. you know, I have 2 kids and, you know, I have family, and I'm, you know, and I'm kind of double hit by this because my day job is set dressing for film and TV. So I didn't work as far as entertainment. And it's crazy because they're starting to get back into work now and stuff like that. But it was a long time where I didn't work. So as far as entertainment goes, that's been to a halt, which affects, you know, my funds, my budgeting, my time to be creative. And then being creative during, you know, as was previously stated, the uncertain times or the unprecedented times is crazy because I could have the worst things going on with me personally and probably make some of the best stuff, you know, go into the studio, go crazy, you know, the worst. I've made some great stuff while I've been at my lowest, but for some reason with this whole like outside thing, I kind of felt like, what's the point? Not in a way where it's like, you know, don't create, but more in a way where it's like, I can't. A lot of indie artists were out there saying, you know, buy my shirts, buy my CDs because I'm not going on tour, and I'm like, we're all going through this shit. Like, why would I? Oh,
Right.
so my language. Why would I, you know, put myself out there like that when people need their food and they need to pay their bills? Like, you know, don't give me your money. I don't need it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna sit there and be like, hey, everybody, you know, the president or whoever, everything you look on the news is depressing. Come look at me and digest my art. So that was hard for me. That's really hard for me to focus people's attention and focus, you know, what they're spending money on myself. Because I have merch, I have CDs, I have stuff. I think I just now started being like, you know, if you want a CD, like, but before I couldn't do it. You know, I really couldn't. It was just not in me to try and make money, you know, during.
Yeah. No, it's real. And I see a lot of people nodding. I think that's something that's been felt in so many different ways. That idea where there's so much that requires their attention, to ask someone to put their attention on us.
Yeah, like, you know, I'm in it just like everybody else. I'm waiting on that, you know, that call to go back to work. I'm waiting on my kid to be able to go to school, like, and then it's like, but here, listen to my album. You know, it's like, it's kind of weird for me to do that.
Yeah, and I mean at the same time, the other thing is like what has been carrying us through all this. It's the things we've watched, the music we like. It's also the solve for so much of the pain of the moment. So it's like this back and forth thing that I think we all understand. So moving on though, Caroline, and again also maybe Juliana, how's it been for you? I know you guys expressed maybe explicitly how this time period has like maybe even made this project come to be.
Okay, well, yes, thank you. We were able to edit our film together via Zoom, and that was great to figure out. We filmed back at Christmas time, and we were going to have to edit because I live in Los Angeles now. We were going to have to edit from a distance anyway. It was very interesting trying to edit that with internet lines, etc. But it was a great learning process, and I think I feel a lot of what Norvin or Tron and John said is, it's hard to be a creative right now. Obviously, I usually perform live. I do a lot of sketch comedy, improv, and stand-up, so that theaters aren't open right now, but it's causing me to reinvent and re-establish myself in different ways, I guess. And same with all of my friends. I went to a show in an abandoned zoo today, not abandoned, but a repurposed old zoo here, to go see a clown show, because I do clowning as well. And that's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun seeing people in their masks and spread out in the grass, just getting out for a day to see some people work through comedy. So it's been tough, but it's also a blessing to have to step back and see things from a different perspective.
Absolutely. You do it all. I love that. Martina, how's it been for you in this current moment?
Yeah, so my day job as well is I'm a production coordinator when I'm not making my own independent films. So it's definitely hit me hard in that sense. My boyfriend who I live with is in production accounting, so he hasn't had much work. What I found is that it's really the productions that were in production before the pandemic are the ones that are coming back first, which makes sense. But those are all staffed up, right? Those are the people that are returning to an existing job. So that's been tough. But I think on the creative end, what it's really proved to me is how much we need the work that we're doing, and the arts that we're in, both music and film, and how much they go hand in hand. Because kind of just listening to your question and everybody answering it, I started to think like, what was, when the pandemic hit, what was one of the first things that I noticed that everyone was watching, right? Which was this movie Contagion on Netflix. We want to see our reality reflected in in the arts that we're consuming. So that's kind of really inspired me. I wish I had more substantial, kind of writing done in this time, but I've been doing my best and trying to not be so hard on myself, because there are some days where it's just not going to happen. But I think that it's just kind of moving forward and knowing that there will be a time after this. And if there's anything you can do today or tomorrow or this week to help you prepare and look forward to, when I am able to meet with people again, when I am able to have a live event, to, bring a crew together to shoot something, what is that going to be? What am I going to be, what is that long lasting passion? What's a story that I absolutely need to tell through my form of art? So I think it's a lot of my friends too have been very, discouraged, and then at times really excited. So I think it's just a wave of emotion that we're just still very much riding, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I think it has to be okay, and you have to. I think a lot of what you said, it resonates with me. Like, we're feeling so much, and that's one thing for sure. We're all feeling a lot, and just making room for that. And sometimes that feeling will be productive, and sometimes it won't be materially productive in that way that we might want it to be. But at the same time, we have to learn to be okay with that. I think that's super essential for all of us, artists or not, to remember. Lucas?
Yeah. Well, so also for me, professionally, I'm a gaffer, grip at electric, as well as assistant camera and camera operator, the whole tech, anywhere in those departments. So it's kind of cool to see that we have almost an entire film set in this one Zoom.
I know you guys got to link up. We can do some
production and set dressing and camera G&E. This is fantastic. But yes, having not worked in 6 months really has been quite a toll, and it's been, you really have to look at what am I doing with my life and what do I want to do with my life, and it's been a little bit of a soul searching process, but the creativity is still there. It's just in the back of my mind. What came to me first back in March was what I truly care about, which is my family, my loved ones, and my town, my hometown. So the first thing I wanted to do was create a documentary about the struggling businesses of Nyack in particular, because just within the 1 square mile of this town, I don't have the statistic yet, but it looks as if almost about 30% of the businesses have already shut down for good. And so some new businesses have come in, which is reassuring, but it's sad to see years and years of establishment go down because of one crisis. So I really wanted to tell all these people's stories before they go away for good. And so that's all of my creativity went directly into, my hometown and these people that I've known my entire life, because that's what I really wanted to share with the world.
Love that. And again, it resonates with me as well as someone from Spring Valley, Rockland County. There's just a lot of story there that needs to get told. Myrna and Art, how about you guys?
Hi. Can you hear me? Okay, so our work has two aspects. We spend usually much of our time touring our live performance, and it's integrated with film and video technology. And then the other aspect of our work is the standalone film. And so came March, it was clear we would not be performing for, we didn't know how long. And so we funneled our creativity into creating this film. And what struck me so deeply was the idea that for so many people during this time, there was not human touch. And that didn't seem either healthy or natural. And so we explored a lot of ways that we could portray that longing. Did you want to say something?
Well, just to add to what Myrna was saying, it seems like there's a lot of time to think about things, and to in addition to working creatively, I don't know how the cycles of work and generating work appears to different artists, but we spend a lot of time preparing for the future as well. So we're writing grants, creating new projects, even though we may not be able to execute them or we have the money to do them. We're trying to keep things going through the pandemic, which has lasted much longer than we thought it would, and that's very tough. But the other side of all this is that with everything slowing down, the social issues, the racial issues are all much more to the fore. There's an audience for this and awareness, and I think this is, certain things come at certain times, and I think this is not just a coincidence of what happened. And this is an opportunity for all of us, artists and non-artists.
Absolutely. And I love to discover that you guys like tour as well, because later on I'll ask questions about like just the different forms and how they may or may not inform each other. Daniel Wolf, how's been it to be creative in this moment for you?
Well, first of all, Nan, I want to say your book's wonderful, and those of you who haven't read it ought to check it out. It's smart and funny and serious, deep.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
The pandemic, my work is sitting alone in the room writing, so to some degree, the pandemic didn't affect me. It did because my major collaborator, who's my wife, Marta Renzi, the filmmaker, had more time on her hands so we could do some stuff together. But the racism, the awareness of racism, and the beginning of people trying to figure that out again, because they've been trying to figure it out for 600 years, or trying not to figure it out, maybe is what they've been doing for 600 years. Strikes me as very important, and to me, it's real exciting. I mean, it's a chance to talk to more people about stuff I've been concerned with for a long time. And the fact that it happens during a pandemic, someday someone will figure out the connection, if there is a connection. But I think that's been the key thing for me, whether it's marching or reading or just talking to people about it.
Love that. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for the compliment. Also, thank you for your work. Shar, how about you?
Hello, everyone. Well, for me, I frequently live in my head. So I guess maybe that's an interesting thing for a creator. The pandemic, in a matter of speaking as well, did not hurt me too much because I spent a lot of time figuring out a pause. And I think that that's the most important thing that the entire world needed was, hey, let's stop the bustle, let's stop the hustle, let's stop distracting ourselves from whatever healing we need so that we can be full artists, full humans, and anti-racist, because I think that has been such a huge problem for so long, and I'm very happy that now we have to pay attention. And not that I didn't pay attention, I'm saying as a whole, everybody has to really take a look and say, hey, there's a bunch of stuff that's really not okay. I'm to be honest, obviously, I'm really heartbroken for those who have been affected, losing loved ones over this awful situation and awful 45 and etc. But this did give a really wonderful opportunity to create, and I just felt that you know, in my life in general, I've felt silenced. I have a really strong trauma rooted in a abuse from a family member, so it always just affected the way I spoke. So film has always been a wonderful way to for me to speak in a different way where I felt a little bit safer. So I think this has been a really great time to get people to listen, because now we can only listen. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I love that. It's important to listen, and we're getting that opportunity. Thank you for that. Azure, how about you?
Yeah, so this has definitely been an interesting time. For me, I feel like it was a big time of like reflection, and like just observing, and like taking it all in and just sort of like transforming everything that was happening, and like, I don't know, just watching, almost like watching a film, and doing a lot of like inner healing work. But I couldn't help but like think, Tron, when you were speaking about like, you know, why should we put our stuff out there? Like, there's so much stuff going on, it doesn't matter. Like, the first thing that came to my head when you said that was like, I think of our art like as a gift to the world, and I feel like it really is that, you know? And I feel like all of what we have to offer is part of like universal healing. So like, we shouldn't be afraid to like, you know, sell our merch or like our CDs or whatever. Like, I feel like that's our offering, and that we should, you know, take advantage of that and give that to the world.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. You know, art is art, and it's one of the most, you know, probably most important things on earth. I just felt like myself, like, as like, you have to be, especially in the indie aspect, you have to be the hustler, you have to be the promoter, you have to be the salesman, and it's hard, I think, to be the salesman. Like I definitely would push it like, hey, check out my music. I definitely would be like, here. But it's like a lot of artists were losing money and stuff like that. So they were being the salesman and the pusher. And it's like, you know what? Like, my stuff's always just been like, here, just take it. Like, I'm not going to sit there and like, you know, be like, oh, you don't have the extra dollar, like, you can't get it, you know? So I just felt like, you know, because I also feel I'm one of these people who ingest it as well. So I feel like, you know, I don't have $10 to buy somebody's album when, you know, the unemployment is running out or something like that. You know what I mean? So I definitely feel it for maybe those who do it as a full-time job, but as like, you know, as indie, you know, artists, it's like, I can't, you know, promote and hustle like that to another person who's going through the same struggle that I am. Because I would be like, nah, use it for groceries or use it for whatever you need.
It's always this interesting tension I feel, and I'm going to move on in a second, between like, you know, trying to be an artist and also existing in this like kind of capitalistic context. And, you know, what we have to offer and what we sort of try to make is about something that it's hard to assign value in the way that we are used to thinking of value to. And especially with the way the system is as it is, sometimes you almost don't want to assign that value to yourself. And so but I think it's an important point to make, that it is kind of like we're trying to make this with a spirit of generosity often. I think that spirit of generosity carries so much of our work. And I think that's important to consider. Before I move on, I want to make sure I see the name Ashley. Just want to make sure if it's Ashley Dodson or not. I don't know if Ashley Dodson was able to get in.
So Ashley, if that's you, feel free to also write in the chat if you're not able to speak. But
yeah.
And hey, hi.
Hey.
Yeah. I wasn't really trying to talk. I wasn't really feeling too well. So, yeah. At this moment, doing film, it's definitely new for me. And sorry, I'm like just not. it's definitely new for me. And this whole pandemic and this racial injustice that's been happening has caused me to actually want to do these films and make some things just aware to others and allow other people to make their own decisions and be able to move forward in their processes of the way they move in life.
Mm.
Great.
I love it. And, you know, I'm grateful for the piece you made alongside Brooklyn. Like I said, I'm from Spring Valley, Rockland County. And, you know, I know Vincent, who has a child with Tina Davis, who was killed by police officers in Spring Valley. And I think like calling out those kind of things, it's super essential, because sometimes it's easy to think that the story of racial injustice is happening in some other that's far away or some distant nowhere or something. But it's everywhere, but also right here too. Tina Davis was killed. She was tasered to death, and that was right here in Rockland. So super essential to call that out. So I appreciate that work that's been done on your side. And I think I got everyone for that first round. So now I'm gonna like move around and with these more specific questions, and it's gonna be pretty close to the order in which the films appeared. And again, you know, there was such a cool gamut and diversity among the films. So they're gonna be maybe a little all over the place, but I really did just enjoy so much of stuff. But so Lucas, I'll start with you. And maybe there'll be opportunity for, I see Rose is here, so maybe there's opportunity for Rose to chime in as well. But I really loved how like the camera in your film sort of moved as like almost like this third participant in the dance. It was kind of like almost voyeur, almost kind of energy, and how sometimes it would peek behind the beams. I was wondering if you could talk about what it is to capture that kind of hard to reduce energy that is something like that tango. And then maybe you could maybe speak about like what it is like to be captured on the other side of that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to like dance films, you know, you really want the movements to speak for themselves. So I didn't want to, I mean, we even shot more inside the dance, and in the end, it muddled it up. I really wanted to keep it as almost as theatrical and, like you said, voyeuristic as possible, keeping it in the frontal end. And yeah, I mean, we had this wonderful dolly, and I really, really wanted to use it, and I wanted to go with the dance. I had the dolly grip I would be like, all right, follow them. Okay, go back. You know, I really wanted to capture these moments, which there were a couple that were fantastic, where they would, you know, Igor and Judith would meet in the center, and I would just capture them and stop the dolly at the same time, because, you know, there was something in there. I mean, if you saw, anybody who saw it and saw the introduction that I said prior to the film, is that these two have a remarkable relationship. And there's just a spiritual relationship between these two that if it wasn't captured in that 1 second, I don't think it was captured at all in the film. So it's really, I wanted to make sure I had as many moments where you could truly see who these two are, and having that constant motion, peering in and out of the poles, I thought was going to be kind of the most explanatory of their relationship. Judith, I don't know if you have anything that you'd like to add to that. And you're muted.
No pressure also, but if you don't mind.
Microphone.
There you go.
Okay. So it was an absolute delight to work with this Lucas Ruderman guy. And I really have nothing to say other than I am so grateful. And what was most astounding for me was the collaboration that was going on. We worked from early in the morning till late at night without a break. And those young people and their spirit and their appreciation for each other and support for each other, they were the light. And in the time that we're in right now, I see this over and over again. I see young people being the light. And his name is Light. Lucas is light, and I look forward very much. We're in the process of collaborating again on a piece that will be an ode, a memorial to the people who lost their lives in this pandemic. and their families. And I look forward to sharing time with him again.
Beautiful. And yeah, as someone who's like sort of getting newer to the film side of things, as a writer who just know, it's really interesting to see how much filmmaking is just a collaboration between so many people kind of doing this kind of dance together and making it work. And so it's a beautiful thing to see that happen in that very specific way. My next question is for John Gray. When John, when you first logged in, I said how it was almost meta to see you in this context after watching your film, and it made me kind of rethink the whole Zoom thing. But it's very, very much of the moment. For people who hadn't seen it, it's I mean, he can describe better than me, but it's a sort of a almost heisty situation over Zoom that happens, and it's really just a really interesting, really fun piece that moves amazing, really incredibly, but it's also very, very much of this pandemic moment. But what was fun and amazing to me about it was it sort of transcended that premise. It wasn't like about Zoom. It used Zoom and employed this kind of context very well, but it was also about these very real characters that became funny and interesting and sort of dire and dark. So can you talk about what it is to like incorporate this new lifestyle, but also write something that sort of transcends that, if that makes sense?
Well, you know, I mean, it started out just being a fun way to get a bunch of actor friends of mine who were also going mad because they weren't working.
Yeah.
And there was one time in my career I had no trouble getting any actor I wanted. Everybody was just ready to go. Please, can we do it now? Can we rehearse some more? Yeah. So you know, it was just fun in that respect. And you know, there's all these tropes now that we see about Zoom. You know, people are eating during Zoom meetings and you know, behaving rudely and you're not conscious of the fact that they're on camera. So there's that fun thing to play with. And then also, you know, just the general sense of corruption that I find is so rife in our society now. You know, the normalization of corruption and thievery. And so that was also a chance to make fun of that a little bit and you know, just shine a little bit of a light on that. And these characters, you know, they're all thoroughly corrupt and completely comfortable with it. You know, nobody's guilty, nobody's trying to hide it.
Yeah.
This is the normal thing for them. And I think that's, you know, an interesting thing to look at.
I love that about, I mean, if you hang around me enough, I'll start like railing against capitalism pretty quick. And so that was my bad completely. I thought it was really fun to watch and just really well written. I want to move to Daniel Wolf. I loved that there was like, you know, poetry incorporated in this. I write fiction, but I'm an MFA, and I've been around poets for a long time now. And I had a couple of questions I wanted to ask, but the one I'm sort of settling is like sort of like the voice and how you arrive at that kind of voice. And the phrase "I guess" is like, and how that returns is one of the things that jumps in my mind, but also someone who's like sort of unsure, but also really particularly aware, really has great images, really has a certain way of really carrying us through a certain time, it felt like. But is also presents himself in a way that maybe is like, but I don't know, or I guess. And can you talk about how you arrived at that voice?
Yeah, you know, I think it's partly what you said earlier, which is that the injustice and racism stuff is going on near us all the time. And the Brinks incident is a famous one in Nyack. And I think partly what the piece is about is being near that, but not in it. So you're near history, but you're not actually in history. And how do you then react to that? And this feeling that I'm sure people are feeling it about all kinds of things right now, but it's all going on just a little bit beyond what you can grasp or do anything about. And that's, I think, the I guess. You know, I think I'm a witness to this. I think this is something I know about. The poem that the film is based on, it came from a real incident, which is I was in O'Donoghue's, a bar that until very recently was right on the bottom of Main Street in Nyack, when the Brinks robbery happened and when the cops came in and said, Chipper's been shot. Chipper was a local cop, African-American, and people in the bar knew him. And so it was like history right to there, but not quite there. And that's what interested me.
Loved it, and that feeling you just expressed really came across. Also, clearly, you know, you have a lot of practice reading poems. I feel like you read it like I was in it with you. So beautiful.
Thanks.
This next question is for Art and Myrna. And it's about this particular piece, but it might also maybe speak to choreography in general. I love that I felt a sense of escalation, even in a piece that wasn't necessarily narrative. And I felt, so I could feel that growing, and especially when the characters ultimately are able to touch. Can you talk about what it is to choreograph and grow and escalate even like a dance piece for film?
Sure. What you're talking about is the arc of the piece. And
Yep.
That's something we're aware of when we choreograph on stage, as well as when we create a film of how can we pull the audience in to what we're saying, then say it fully, and then where does it peak and how does it end? And so we made a choice of filming with an overhead camera so that the bodies look different than they might look on stage. And that is something that is exciting about film, that in a dance film, the dance can look different than it does on stage. We filmed with an overhead camera, and because we were talking about talking in a metaphorical way about this loss of the ability to embrace for so many people, we chose to film each of us separately and overlay our images in that ghost-like kind of way on top of each other until right at the end. That's the climax when we do actually partner. Do you want to talk a little about the lighting?
Sure. We with the overhead camera, we decided we only wanted to light the bodies and not the floor. So we shuttered the side lights so that you'd only see the bodies, and then the background or the floor could not be seen. It was basically transparent, and it put us into a void, which we thought was appropriate for the moment. And the
Beautiful
build up, I guess, was something which we just is a natural feel. I think we obviously, well, we filmed much more than we eventually used, and then we were trying the different clips and overlaying them on top of each other and deciding where we wanted the piece to go. And it was really very contained. It's in one rectangle. Nothing changes. The only thing that really builds in some respects, other than the lifting at the end, is that we exit and enter the space. So we really do have each part of the rectangle, the frame, is a wing in a sense where we enter and exit, and we can play around with that. And upside down, we're able to kind of work without gravity, so to speak, because of that.
I love it. Beautiful. This next question is for Azure. I found there to be like a real energy in your writing. I really love just the way I love the pace and sort of visuals. Actually, I remember the line, "I'm running with your whole body," and the way that line was hit. I really just enjoyed listening to the words that were written. I'm also interested in like excerpting pieces from a larger piece, sort of like pulling from a whole and making another whole, which I think is sort of what you were able to do in your piece. Can you talk about what that's like, and also maybe just your style in general?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. So during quarantine, I basically finished writing this feature that I had been working on for a long time. And I mean, another, like, I guess, a gift that quarantine gave me was like forcing me to finish this feature. Because, you know, it's also like very personal, and like, you know, it's a little bit hard to write, and it's just like, it was a lot. So I finished this feature, and I wanted to create something that like embodied the feeling of it, and sort of embodied like what the feature would look like and what it would feel like. And so there was this letter in the piece, a letter from a father to his child. sort of like a love letter that's like full of remorse and sadness and a lot of emotion. And so that's sort of where the short came from, this letter. Yeah. I don't know, I'm really inspired by like music and just by like life vignettes. And I think that's a big part of like my work. Like I like just taking slices of life. Like I often make short videos like this short film, just to like remember moments and to share moments and to capture like the feeling that I felt during those moments. So yeah, I guess that's where that came from. Yeah.
Yeah, and it came out beautifully, so thank you for it. And talking about being inspired by music, Shar, I really love, like, so again, thinking about arcs, how like there was sort of a silencing in the beginning, but you were able to arrive at this place of joy and movement and sort of, I don't know, release almost. And I was interested in how it might your filmmaking style is or is not influenced by your choreography background and your dance background. I was wondering if there's ways that they sort of bleed into each other and how they sort of influence each other.
Yes, of course. I consider myself a visual artist, so I just feel like that's a difficult thing to put into words. I think that it's just a matter of the story just, I can't even answer that question. Yes, it absolutely does, because you know, there is just like it was said before, there's just a choreography and a dance between all of us and all of us artists that work together. So it just works similarly when I'm filming my talking props, if you will. So yeah, it's just I'm so sorry. I have no way to articulate my answer to this question. The answer is yes.
I think that's perfect. But maybe as a little follow-up, since you answered quickly, I was wondering if you could talk about how like the film moves from the covered mouths to sort of an unrestrained kind of joy. Can you talk about that movement in your film?
Yeah, well, that feeling of the covered mouths is how I feel often, because of everything that I've been through. It's just I'll always feel comfortable using my physical voice. So this beginning, it's kind of an amalgamation of how my trauma is moving me now. So by the end, I feel that there are a lot of people out there that are still really pushed down by their trauma, and they have no voice, and they feel that they can't speak, and they can't, I can't talk, I can't tell anyone, no one will believe me, things like this, because mine is centered really around, it was honestly made around Me Too, around that time. And every time I speak to somebody, the response is constantly Me Too, honestly, all the time, every time. And it's difficult, it's really disheartening. So I think that for that is a joy that I really still wish to get to be honest. I still don't feel completely free to use my voice.
Right.
So that is a vision for the future.
Powerful. I love that. And I think you feel that. This next one is for Carolina and Juliana. You guys talked about how, like, in the little intro for your film, talked about how it was an improvised film. And for me, you know, there was still like such a ton of tension and like a lot of power. And it also kind of arrived though at like sort of communal, maybe kind of something like fun and I don't know, some kind of release or something like that. But yeah, the arc and power of it felt really controlled and practiced and smart. So I was wondering what it is to make an improvised film and enroll your friends and create something like that.
I mean, we honestly didn't really know what it would be like to make one either. We just sort of tried out. Caroline, as she said earlier, does a lot of like comedy improv. And I had been taking acting classes for the first time since like college up until this happened. So I was doing a little bit. And when we were both home, we just were like, let's do something. And the actors that we used just brought in so much, and we were able to kind of slip into those roles, and we had maybe like 3 or 4 hours of footage. So it was a lot of watching and like a very patient DP of taking all that footage for us, and just trying to figure out which moments created that narrative and which ones we're going to kind of condense down all those hours into like the most powerful scene, if that makes sense. Yeah. Caroline?
Oh, you said it. we gave everyone, we told everyone what their relationships to each other were, how they knew everyone that was in there. So we didn't have to do introductions or anything like that. Everyone knew why they were there. But once everyone arrived, we sort of let secrets come out.
Wow. Yeah. That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Like,
and it was
really
fun.
Fun for everybody.
And it's freeing. Yeah. It's freeing too. Like everyone's talking about like how much, I don't know, how it is sort of like a dance or a movement. And it was freeing to just not have a script and to not, to just kind of let the day unfold and really be these characters.
I love that. And that's inspiring to know that that's what happened, because it just makes it like opens up the idea of like new possibility for me as well. So I love that. Thank you guys.
Yeah, you're invited next time.
I'm down. No. This next one is from Martina. And you know, Chloe, I thought it was such a beautiful film. Like I thought it was just like so many beautiful frames. I'm like recently into photography. There were so many moments where I was like click, click, like there was like just like, you know, just want to take so many of those frames down, just like frame them myself, you know. But I love the kind of tension between maybe, I don't know, like expectation and also the play of what happens. You know, obviously there's moments where we get to see the little missing person shot there. And, you know, we just, I don't know, trained to view the world as terrifying and horrible. And I felt a lot of that play between that and also Chloe, who's able to just have like a great day on her own, you know? And so can you talk about sort of that tension of like sort of fun against the possibility of danger, expectation versus someone just having fun?
Yeah, definitely. I just really feel like as children, you know, kids, especially in this time, I mean, I made this film a few years ago, but it feels like it's still relevant for this time of like, how do we talk to children? I have a niece and a nephew. My niece is 5 and she will tell you how this virus spread. And it amazes me that she can let adults know that. But I think that it's just kids tune in and out of things. So I was really wanting Chloe to be surrounded by these dangers and have like an adult audience member understand that more than she would. And I also just as the filmmaker, and I've known Chloe since she was born, she's not a professional actress. I wanted her to have a good day. I wanted her to have a really good time, and just see her joy. So I think that I just wanted to have this juxtaposition, like you said, of expectation versus her reality. And it's not that it wasn't a dangerous move for her to be out alone. But yeah, I wanted that reality to still very much be there and not be hidden, but just to speak to the fact that, you know, kids can tune it out a little bit easier than we can and just go for it anyway and kind of tap into that fearlessness.
Yeah, fearlessness. And I mean, I that really comes through. And I mean, I'm thinking about like some of the shots where she's on the other side of the platform, so the harshness of the train coming by and her orange dress just sort of like glowing there. Really, I think we were able to really feel that. So I think you did that beautifully. And I'm coming back around to Tron. I had written this. I noted the darkness of the video prior to like looking at the name of the album. But I'm interested in. I love the sort of the darkness of the video and the way the shadows move. And can you talk about the tone of the video and how you sort of arrived at that kind of visualization?
Well, we had the video directed by our friend John, who was also on the label in another band. But he had this whole vision. Pretty much when I do stuff, as long as I'm cool with the person and like they get what I tried to do on the song, I just let him do whatever he wanted, and it hit. So for me, it kind of really gave that visual to exactly what was going on, especially in the sound. So And I kind of lost track about the question again. Can you repeat it again? What were you saying? What was the question again?
How did you sort of like arrive at the sort of tone of that video, and like sort of how you like arrive? Yeah.
So basically, there was two kind of central themes on it. So my verse was kind of like afraid of the dark, like the dark inside, and then my brother's was kind of like afraid of the dark, like his skin. So I think that the whole video being dark, and then having, you know, the imagery of us being shot dead and us seeing it, it's kind of like you're seeing the darkness, yet you're kind of like not affected by it because you're still living within it. So that's kind of like afraid of the dark, like. And then essentially the second album was called Manhunt, which played off of Afraid of the Dark, because Manhunt is a game that you play in the dark.
Right.
And to play a game in something that you were afraid of at first, you know what I mean? Like, it's the progression.
Got it.
So, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, you can't be afraid of the dark anymore. So that's why it came into Manhunt. But as far as Afraid of the Dark, it was, you know, the people being afraid of your skin, or like you being afraid of the darkness inside of you, which is kind of like what was going on with me at the time, and then what was going on with my brother, because he was, I guess, more affected by this was 2017, so it was more of like I was going through things with myself, and he was going on, you know, he was, I guess, more socially aware of what was going on. So, but for us to meet in the middle of just dark, like, you know what I mean, just clouds, just gruesome, just, and for it to reflect the sounds that I used, like the sounds, like I used like a sample where I chopped it up and put it backwards, that thing in the beginning where it's like you're like, it's kind of some Satanist stuff, but it's not like that. It's just like, it just sounds like someone may think that, like, basically.
Did you produce the whole record as well? Did you produce it as well?
Yeah, the whole thing, every sound. So like for me, I like to think every sound plays a part. So, you know, I just needed to bring whoever's listening to it and watching it to that same place.
I rock with that heavy. I make beats too, but poorly. I got my little like MPC like right over here.
Oh, okay. All right. I see you over there. All right. You might have to come through. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got the stuff.
Yeah, I'm not on your level yet. You know, I'm far off. I want to make. I know, Ashley, you don't want to speak. I just want to let you know I had a question. If you want to type it or leave it alone, that's fine as well. For Truth to Power and Ashley. I would just talk, the question I was going to ask was about the responsibility you feel of representing stories like Tina Davis's and what it means to bring truth to power for you guys. And I just want to get acknowledged. I think you guys did something important. And again, I know you said you don't want to speak, so you don't have to now. But you know, I just want to make sure at least that you know that, you know, I make sure that I acknowledge you guys once more. So yeah, those are the questions I had for all the filmmakers, unless I missed someone and I'll feel bad now. But maybe this might be a good opportunity to open it up to the audience. Well, I don't want to just do that. Juliana, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I know. So we're at 7:30 now. So if you wanted to do a couple minutes for the audience, that's fine. Or if you want to jump off, it's totally up to you.
I would like to do the audience.
Okay.
I don't want to just leave.
You're like, all right, do that. All right. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or, you know, just come on and start talking. I don't see any right now. If not, I have a question for you, Nana.
Wait,
oh, sorry. Oh, Ashley's there.
Ashley said that Brooklyn said something to read. I just don't have it myself right now. I can
read it if you want. So He
Yes.
says, just for everybody in the audience to know what Truth to Power Media is, they are a production company intending to support the self-empowerment of Black and Brown communities through storytelling, mentorship, and self-representation in media. So every piece on the reel you saw this evening was produced by Ashley, who has also directed other projects, and they're honored to support her in telling the stories of her Naya community. So for folks who are local or have visions for the future, you know, just know that Truth to Power Media is there, and that they're looking forward to supporting stories like that. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, thank you. But yeah, so maybe, yeah, are there any audience questions? I mean, maybe like if you ask me a question, that could be time for maybe filmmakers to ask each other questions too. Like, but I can answer a question for sure. But I'm also, maybe the filmmakers might want to ask questions of each other. I want to make room for that as well.
Caroline wants to know if Azure filmed her shots to go with the letter, or was the footage collected over time like she mentioned? So yeah, how did you, it felt like a collage almost, like how did you pick the footage? And
yeah, I had like just years of footage in my archives that I've shot over the years. And I just pulled from that. Yeah.
Oh.
Does that answer the question? Okay, cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Any other question?
Yeah, maybe I could ask something of the other filmmakers, which is, I'm struck by how everybody's making films right now, off their phone or whatever. It's like the world is full of it, and somehow the pandemic seems to heighten it. Does it feel cluttered to you? Do you feel like there are films everywhere, or does it not affect you?
Well, I could speak to that a little bit. You know, I do feel that there is an enormous, I mean, glut sounds pejorative. I don't really mean it to be pejorative, but there are a lot of movies out there. And, you know, I think it's great that, you know, and I tell, whenever I speak to students, you know, I tell them, like, you know, you've got a movie studio in your pocket now. You know, you've got this, and there's no reason not to make any kind of movie that you want. And, you know, when I was getting started, back when dinosaurs, you know, roamed the earth and Main Street was a prairie, you know, we had to do film. We had to Super 8 film, and you had to get the film developed, and you know, so, but now it's all on the phone. And so I always encourage people, just find whatever creative outlet you can to, you know, to make movies. And it does make it a little bit cluttered. You know, it's harder to sometimes find the really good stuff because there's just so much being made. But I personally think it's really positive, and it's great that people can you know, be visually artistic in a way that now is accessible, I think, to more and more people.
I'd like to add to that, if that's all right. Yeah, it's for a lot of times, like, let's say personally, it's overwhelming because, you know, it gets you in your head of like, am I doing anything? Everybody's making movies, everybody's making things, and well, I'm over here doing what? Like, what are my short films even going to be seen? My documentaries, anything? But it also, it's also encouraging because, you know, it is more feasible to make things, and it's great to see the world becoming creative. And just economically, I mean, that's why I chose to talk about businesses. I mean, economically, it becomes much more accessible for everybody to be creative, and it drives camera prices lower because they now have to compete against phones. You know, we have the new Red digital cinema camera came out at still not amazingly affordable, but way more affordable than any of their other cameras. So it's becoming more and more of a competition in our capitalist society, which in a way is good because it becomes accessible to people who would never have the access, like, you know, myself. So it's really fascinating what it's doing to filmmakers who are just starting out in the indie world, and to people who have been on their, you know, cushy Hollywood production companies for years.
Thank you. And so Nana had to hop off, but we can continue this conversation.
Bye, guys.
Anybody else?
Love y'all.
Okay.
Sorry to leave so quickly.
Bye. Bye. Thank you so much.
I wanted to add into that. If that
Go
was okay.
for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think what they're talking about is something that literally happened to music probably maybe 10 to 15 years ahead, where, you know, people are putting out the same quality of art in their bedrooms, or, you know, that people used to pay, you know, millions of dollars, thousands of dollars to do in their studio. And that's one of the things that, you know, as someone my age who started recording like right when computers started to be able to record at home and not, you know, at the studio, and then now where you can do it on an iPhone or not. And I love it. You know, I know people have a lot of problems with like just anybody being able to make it, but you have to also realize that it kind of doesn't keep out people because of their finances. You know what I mean? Like, you've got kids who want to make music that can't afford to go to the studio for $100 an hour, or, you know, buy a $1,000 drum set and stuff like that. And, you know, everyone has the mind in the creative juices to do it, and they shouldn't be locked out by money. Also, it does with the competition, it does make it better. So if you're going to be, you know, if you give 100 people a MacBook and say, you know, make the best album you can, you're going against more people. So your quality of your product has to be that much better. When if you just came out of the $1 million studio, there's 5 of you, hey, somebody's gonna listen to it because, you know, you're one of the only people recording here. You're one of the only people where we can hear it on a CD. Now, if you have 1 million CDs, who's really going to be showing out of 1 million? You know what I mean? So it makes the competition better, regardless of if you hear someone who, you know, you may think is not as good as you, but you have to be that much better than everyone. Because if there's only 5 of you there, and it's like, you know, the record label's got 5 artists, even the worst person is going to get famous or a certain play. But and, you know, I've done a lot of stuff off less than $500 worth of stuff, which is like ridiculous. And I think for film, I always said that music is kind of not easier, but in a sense where I can make an album on my own. A lot of people are not able to make an entire film or movie on their own. You just can't. I mean, you can, but it's just not as easy as far as, you know, lighting, actors, you know, stuff like that. So if we can see film become that, you're gonna start seeing more creative things, and not just the blockbusters. You know what I mean? There's gonna be an actual underground and indie. There is already, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not gonna cost, you don't need $1 million. So I think you'll see more creative things.
Yeah, I really love that idea.
I agree with that. I mean, as a person that's spent my life making films and exhibiting films, this is a democratization of an art form, and it does put a huge amount of pressure on emerging artists that are trying to make a living, but that doesn't mean that it's not something that has to happen. There was a time when not everyone had access to music production, but even before that, there were times when not everyone had access to reading and writing, and there were times when people did not have access to painting. These were things that only certain elite groups had access to or were allowed to participate in. And that is what we have seen break down in our own lifetimes in terms of the motion picture. It's a fascinating transition to go through, and it's an important part of literacy. It's an important part of being able to communicate with each other and to understand each other's stories and be allowed to tell our own stories instead of an elite group telling stories about people whose experiences they have not lived, which is a form of colonialism, and actually is colonialism when a certain group thinks that they are entitled to interpret the world for everyone instead of each of us being able to tell our own stories. And that is what democracy is about, and that's what we're living through today and what there's a reaction to today.
I think that's really important, and also all the ways we've been talking about the resourcefulness of, like, you know, Azure Rouet that she put together this project during quarantine, and John, and thinking of how that the limitations now are furthering that conversation of democratizing it. We have a question if anyone else wants to speak on that, but Shar wants to ask a question if that's okay. All right,
Yeah.
go for it. Yeah.
Hi, I don't want to stop the flow. First of all, Matthew, thank you for that. That was wonderfully said. Very nice, very nice. And kind of like, I guess it might be kind of on the cusp of that, but maybe not. I'm kind of going back to where we were before. So I have a friend who's a writer, and she's a really brilliant writer. We've produced maybe four shorts. It's I think it's New Media TV is the category by which she submits to festivals. It's won some awards, it's done great, etc. So I am I guess, super indie filmmaker where I'm using A7S2, it's a Sony, I use natural light, I figure out what I can do with what I'm given. And I really enjoyed what I do and I love what I'm doing, but every now and then you'll get an actor who'll get on set and be like, oh, it's like indie filmmaking. And they do their thing, they leave, and they're like, give me my money, and like, there's just no respect. So my question is for, you know, John, who walked among the dinosaurs, etc., right? So things have changed, obviously, and we're talking about how technology is much easier now and everybody can get their hands on it, which is good. It is more inclusive that way, and I do applaud it 100%. But my question is, sorry, before I ask my question, I got a job as DP for a series that was going to go to Netflix or pitch to Netflix. But the A7S2, well, I don't have that anymore. I have an A7 III now, FYI, for the snobs, you know, whatever. But my 4K was not good enough for Netflix at the time. And I just felt like, okay, this is too big of a job. There are too many people involved. I can't mess up. This is too big. So I stepped down. I just did a behind the scenes documentary. And the guy who got the job has a bunch of gear, lots of stuff, a whole truck of things, lots of light, lots of this and that. And I just feel like, do you have to have that? I would love to hear everyone's opinion on, if I showed up with an A7 III, but I have good work to show, would you be like, oh, no, sit down, peasant, you know?
Well, I can say that, you know, I think that day has kind of passed when, you know, you needed to have trucks and, you know, gigantic footprint, you know, to make a movie. And now, having been fortunate enough to work in a world where I had all those toys and tools, I can't say it's not great. I mean, it's pretty cool. You come up with a crane shot you want to do, and they just do it. But, you know, in terms of storytelling, it's just about your vision and your ability to commit that vision to a story. And you know, whether you've got, you know, listen, you can look at the slickest, most professional looking movie ever, and if it doesn't affect you or reach you, who cares? Yet if there's something that's shaky and it's dark and it's a little bit muddled, the sound's not quite good, but it strikes a chord in you and makes you feel something, you know, there's no contest. And so my feeling is that the smaller, and it's one of the things I've appreciated from making short films, which is how I started, you know, back in the 70s. And now I'm doing it again. And it's this great sense of like, yeah, you don't need all that shit. You know, you can just show up with people who are committed and passionate, and you'll get it done.
Right. What is wrong with that, honestly? I mean, a lot of people have said to me, just run a bunch of cables, plug a bunch of cables in, and everybody will think you're $1 million. Yeah, I just feel like story is more important. Has that, like, movies like Overboard or Back to the Future, maybe those are bad examples, but 80s movies that had so much story, so much life, so relatable. Oh, I'm crying all the time. And now you have, you know, Transformers or whatever. That's a bad example too, I'm sorry. But it's just some new things that are just like, here's a bunch of tricks. Here's a bunch of special effects, but where's the story, right? I just feel like something happened.
You have to watch television now for good stories.
Right.
You know, feature films are dead. You know, creatively they're dead.
Well, this may be the moment to thank Rivertown Films for picking movies that it seems to me used gear and didn't use gear, but told some stories that were important. I'm honored to be in this group, and I think Rivertown did a great job kind of finding local stuff that is bigger than local. Thanks.
Thank you, Daniel. And I think that it's a good moment too to bring up that that is something that we want to keep doing, and that there's, you know, Matthew and Vera and all of Rivertown is super open to any ideas that you all have, like this conversation that Shar is starting of like, how do we support each other through not just technology, but our, you know, feedback, and like maybe if there's any ideas from anyone in the audience for future programs you want to see, or things that we can facilitate to help further those conversations, you know, feel free to reach out. You know, you can join the board, you can get involved. I am pitching right now to get involved, but also if there's just like a one-off sort of program you want to see, or anything like that, just make sure to let us know. Yeah. Are there, I know that we've gone slightly over. I hate cutting the off, but we are a little over time. So is there any final words that people have before we wind down?
I just wanted to add to Shar's question that you may not be hired by other people without gear, but making your own stuff, I've seen it really motivates me watching things that, you know, very successful people in the industry started off with, and making a film like your film that we all just watched is another way to maybe be seen and to continue making projects, because you never know what project is going to lead you to, you know, something bigger with fancier gear. Like I love Halloween, the movie Halloween, and in interviews Jamie Lee Curtis says that she's looking to find a project that has that much heart, because they drove around in a van and filmed in a city, and it was so like all hands on deck. And you know, even I watched a video that Issa Rae of Insecure fame made when she was in college, and the quality is so bad, but you never know, because it's the person behind it that has a unique perspective and a unique story to tell. And I think everyone here has that. And I think that the right person, the right people will always be attuned to that and see the person behind it. So that's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one final thing too, just jumping off of what Caroline said, is that at the end of the day, what I personally look for is not the equipment. It's if you understand the story that I'm trying to tell, and if you want to collaborate with me on that and you care the way that I do. So I think that that's a really brilliant thing that Caroline just said, is through your own work, you will attract those people that think the way that you do, that when you're on set with them, there can be more shorthand than having this kind of like pulling teeth of having to explain what this scene means, when that should have been understood before you got on set. And then my final words is that I just wanted to say to Rivertown, I think any filmmaker's main goal is just to have their work be seen and watched. So I just want to thank you guys for putting this all together, because this is really beautiful, and keeping our work up and providing a link that we can share to loved ones and people who are interested to see our work. I think that's the most important thing for me, is just having it accessible. So thank you.
Sharing your work, and you know, we hopefully will do this again. So if you happen to have other things in the future you want to show us, hopefully we can keep doing that for folks. I don't know if Matthew and Bear, if you have any words that you want to say. No.
I just say thank you all for your films and for showing up tonight, and for everything that you do. This has been a really fun program to be involved with. I really want to thank Juliana, who's put the most work into it. It is a lot of work, and you know, I wish we could thank you monetarily more than we can. We will keep doing it in the future. Hopefully we can find ways to support artists that contribute to it better in the future. Thank you so much. This has been such a great start. It's really exciting.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just put my words of thanks in. I'm so glad we all got to meet. That's fantastic. And it was a great conversation. So we hope it'll keep going and you'll stay in touch with us and be involved and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. And I'll say thank you to Nana, who's gone, but he did leave his contact info in the chat. If anybody feels called to reach out, he's offered his email and also his social media. So feel free to keep in touch with Nana as well.